The great assembly hall in New Geneva buzzed with excitement. Today marked exactly 1100 years since the last war in the galaxy. Representatives from 43 different worlds had gathered to celebrate the longest peace in known history. Ambassador Helen Carter straightened her blue dress as she walked toward the podium. Around her, aliens of all shapes and sizes chatted happily. The tall green Zelthians waved their forearms in greeting. The small furry Kessons squeaked with joy. Even the serious rock-like granites seemed to smile in their own way. Helen had given this same peace celebration speech 11 times before. Each century brought the same message of hope and friendship. She cleared her throat and began speaking into the microphone. "Friends from across the galaxy," Helen said, her voice carrying through the massive hall. "Today we celebrate something amazing. For 1100 years, not a single shot has been fired in anger between our worlds. Not one battle, not one war. We have built something beautiful together." The crowd erupted in cheers. Tentacles, claws, and hands all clapped together. Helen smiled and continued. "Our children grow up knowing only peace. Our ships carry trade goods instead of weapons. Our scientists work together instead of building better ways to destroy each other. This is what we have accomplished." In the back of the hall, Captain Jake Morrison leaned against the wall. He wore his Earth military uniform, though it looked more like a parade costume than battle gear. His job was mostly ceremonial now. Earth's military was tiny, just a few thousand people, who mostly helped with emergencies and disasters. Jake watched the celebration with a small smile. His grandmother had told him stories about the old days, when humans fought wars all the time. Those stories seemed like fairy tales now. Who would want to fight when life was so good? The peaceful mood in the hall suddenly changed. The main doors burst open with a loud crash. Heavy footsteps echoed through the suddenly quiet space. A group of aliens marched into the hall. They were tall and covered in thick gray armor. Their faces looked like angry lizards with sharp teeth. Red eyes glowed behind dark helmets. These were Corvani warriors, and they had not been invited. The crowd gasped and moved away as the Corvani stomped toward the stage. Their leader was huge, even bigger than the others. Scars covered his visible skin. A cape made from some kind of alien fur hung from his shoulders. This was War Chief Zektar, ruler of the Corvani Empire. He had conquered 17 worlds in the past 50 years. His empire grew larger every day, swallowing up smaller civilizations like a hungry monster. Zektar climbed onto the stage without being invited. His heavy boots made the floor shake. He grabbed the microphone from Helen's hand and pushed her aside. His voice boomed through the hall like thunder. "I am War Chief Zektar of the Corvani Empire," he growled. "I bring a message for the soft creatures of this pathetic galaxy." The alien representatives trembled in their seats. Some tried to hide behind others. The Kessons made scared squeaking noises. Even the tough granites looked worried. "For too long, you have made this galaxy weak with your peace," Zektar continued. "You have forgotten what it means to be strong. You have forgotten what it means to fight. This makes me sick." He pointed one clawed finger at Helen, who stood quietly beside him. "Especially you, humans. You are the worst of all. You started this foolish peace. You made everyone else soft and weak like you. This ends now." Zektar's red eyes swept across the crowd. Many aliens looked ready to faint from fear. "The Corvani Empire declares war on Earth and all its allies. You have 7 days to surrender completely. Give us your planets, your ships, and your people. Become our slaves and we might let some of you live." The hall fell completely silent. You could hear the air conditioning humming. Some aliens had stopped breathing entirely. Then from the back of the hall came a sound nobody expected. Jake Morrison was chuckling. It started as just a small laugh, like someone had told a funny joke. Then it grew louder. Soon Jake was laughing out loud, holding his stomach as if he had heard the funniest thing in the world. Other humans in the crowd began to smile. Then they started laughing too. Helen tried to keep a straight face, but a giggle escaped her lips. Within moments, every human in the hall was laughing. The aliens stared in shock. The Corvani looked confused and angry. Zektar's face turned darker gray with rage. "What is this?" he roared. "I have declared war on you. Why do you laugh?" Admiral Lisa Thompson stood up from her seat in the front row. She was wiping tears from her eyes from laughing so hard. Her uniform was neat and clean, with ribbons that looked more like decorations than war medals. "I'm sorry," Lisa said, still giggling. "Could you please say that again? It's been so long since anyone declared war on us. We're a bit out of practice with the proper response." More laughter erupted from the humans. Jake walked forward, still chuckling. "War Chief Zektar, right?" Jake said, "That's a really impressive speech. Very scary. Did you practice it in front of a mirror?" The other aliens could not believe what they were seeing. The Corvani were the most feared warriors in the galaxy. They had destroyed entire civilizations, and the humans were treating them like a joke. Zektar's hand moved to the weapon at his side. "You dare mock the Corvani Empire? We have conquered worlds while you played with flowers and sang songs." Helen finally got control of herself. She walked back to the microphone, gently taking it from Zektar's surprised grip. "War Chief, we appreciate you coming all this way to make your announcement," she said politely. "It must have been a long trip. Would you like some coffee while we discuss this?" "Discuss?" Zektar sputtered. "There is nothing to discuss. I have given you terms of surrender." "Oh, right," Helen nodded. 7 days to surrender completely. Become your slaves. Got it." She turned to Lisa. "Admiral, how does our calendar look next week?" Lisa pulled out a small tablet and pretended to check it seriously. "Well, let's see. Monday is the yearly flower festival on Luna. Tuesday, we're opening the new children's hospital on Mars. Wednesday is the big chess tournament. Chess tournament?" Jake interrupted. "Oh, that's going to be good this year. Bobby Chun thinks he can finally beat the computer." "No way," another human called out. "That computer is too smart." The humans continued chatting about their peaceful activities, as if the war declaration had never happened. The Corvani stood there, completely confused. This was not how their victims usually reacted. Zektar was so angry that smoke seemed to come from his armor. "You will regret this insult. In 7 days, my fleets will turn your worlds into burning rocks." He turned and stomped toward the exit, his warriors following behind him. At the door, he looked back one more time. 7 days. Humans, 7 days, and your pathetic peace dies forever. The doors slammed shut behind them. The hall was quiet for a moment. Then the humans started laughing again. "Well," Helen said to the crowd of still shocked aliens, "that was interesting. Should we get back to the celebration?" But the other species were too frightened to celebrate. They had just watched the humans laugh at the galaxy's most dangerous enemy. Either the humans were completely insane, or they knew something that nobody else did. As the crowd slowly filed out of the hall, many aliens whispered the same question to each other. What are the humans not telling us? 3 days had passed since War Chief Zektar's declaration. The galaxy was in panic. Emergency meetings were held on every civilized world. Trade routes shut down. Families prepared to flee their homes. But on Earth, life seemed completely normal. Colonel Matt Davis walked through the Museum of Human History in downtown New York. Behind him followed a group of very nervous alien ambassadors. They had come to Earth hoping to understand why humans were not preparing for war. "This is our Hall of Conflicts," Matt said cheerfully, pointing to a massive room filled with holographic displays. "We keep records of all our old fights here." The Zelthian ambassador, A tall green creature named Vexali looked around in confusion. But I thought humans were a peaceful species. Why do you have a museum about fighting? Matt smiled. Oh, we are peaceful now. But we used to fight a lot. Want to see? He pressed a button on the wall. The room filled with three-dimensional images of ancient human battles. Swords clashed. Guns fired. Explosions lit up the air. The aliens stepped back in fear. They had never seen anything so violent. This is from about 4,000 years ago, Matt explained casually. Humans fought with sharp metal sticks back then. Pretty basic stuff. More images appeared. Tanks rolled across battlefields. Airplanes dropped bombs. Ships fired cannons at each other across oceans. This is more recent, Matt continued. Only about 2,000 years old. We got much better at fighting by then. The alien ambassadors were horrified. The Kessin representative, a small furry creature named Pippo, was shaking with fear. How many wars did your species fight? Pippo squeaked. Matt thought for a moment. Let me check the database. He touched a screen on the wall. Numbers appeared in the air. Looks like about 40,000 documented conflicts. That's just the ones we kept good records of. Vexali nearly fainted. 40,000 wars in your own species? Oh yes, Matt nodded. We were very good at finding reasons to fight each other. Religion, land, resources, pride, sometimes just because we were bored. He pressed another button. The displays changed to show more recent history. Nuclear explosions mushroomed into the sky. Cities burned. Millions of people fled in terror. This is from about 1,200 years ago, Matt said. We invented weapons that could destroy entire cities. Very efficient. The aliens huddled together, too scared to speak. But then we stopped, Matt continued. We realized that fighting was becoming too dangerous. So we decided to have peace instead. You just decided? Vexali asked weakly. Pretty much, Matt shrugged. We figured out that peace was better than blowing up the planet. Meanwhile, across the city, something strange was happening. General Patricia Wood stood in what looked like a retirement home. Old humans sat in chairs, playing cards and reading books. They looked completely harmless, but these were not ordinary elderly people. Attention, veterans, Patricia announced. Code 7 is now active. The peaceful scene changed instantly. The elderly human stood up with surprising speed. Their movements became sharp and precise. Eyes that had seemed tired now blazed with focus. Sergeant First Class Danny Clark was 180 years old, but he moved like a man half his age. He had fought in the last real war before the peace began. For over a century, he had been living in this retirement community, which was actually a military readiness center. How long since our last drill, General? Danny asked. 3 months. Patricia replied. But you know what they say about riding a bicycle. Danny grinned. Some things you never forget. All across Earth, similar scenes were playing out. Humans who had appeared to be ordinary civilians were revealing their true nature. Teachers, doctors, farmers, and shopkeepers were all part of Earth's hidden military system. Lieutenant Sophie Martinez was only 25 years old. Her friends thought she was just a college student studying ancient history. They had no idea that her history classes were actually advanced military strategy courses. Professor Johnson, Sophie said to her instructor, "Are we really doing this?" Professor Johnson, whose real name was Colonel Steve Johnson, smiled. "Sophie, you've been preparing for this your whole life. You just didn't know it." Sophie thought about all her education. Physical fitness was mandatory for all humans. She had thought it was just for health. Strategy games were taught in every school. She had thought they were just fun. Even their entertainment was full of conflict and competition. The sports, Sophie said suddenly. The video games. The movies about war. All training, Colonel Johnson confirmed. We've been preparing your entire generation for something like this. Across the solar system, Earth's civilian installations were transforming. The Lunar Research Station opened hidden weapons bays. The Mars mining colony revealed defensive shields. The Jupiter gas harvesting platform deployed fighter squadrons, but the most surprising transformation was happening in Earth's orbit. Thousands of satellites that had been labeled as communication relays and weather monitors were actually something else entirely. Admiral Tony Roberts sat in the command center of the Terran defense grid. Banks of screens showed every satellite, every station, and every ship in human space. All systems are coming online, reported Captain Nina Foster. The grid is fully operational, Tony nodded. For 800 years, humans had been building this network. Every satellite they launched, every space station they built, every peaceful outpost they established had been part of one massive defense system. The aliens had never suspected because humans had never lied. They really were peaceful. They really did want to avoid war. But they had learned an important lesson from their violent past. The best way to keep peace was to be ready for war. Back at the museum, the alien ambassadors were learning this lesson too. I don't understand, Vexali said. If humans know so much about fighting, why did you seem so calm when the Corvani declared war? Matt looked surprised by the question. Because we've been expecting this for centuries. Expecting it? Of course, Matt said. Peace doesn't last forever unless you work to keep it. We've been working very hard. He pressed another button on the wall. New images appeared, showing human civilian activities. But now the aliens could see these activities differently. Children playing tag were actually learning tactical movement. Adults playing chess were studying military strategy. Even gardening taught humans about logistics and resource management. Everything we do has two purposes, Matt explained. One is for peace, one is for war. We hope we never need the second purpose, but we're ready if we do. The aliens finally understood why the humans had laughed at Zektar's declaration. It wasn't because they were weak or foolish. It was because they had been preparing for this moment for over 1,000 years. What happens now? Pippo asked quietly. Matt smiled, but his eyes had a cold look that none of the aliens had seen before. Now we show the Corvani why the galaxy has been peaceful for 1,100 years. It wasn't because we forgot how to fight. It was because we got so good at it that nobody wanted to try us. He looked at the displays showing humanity's long history of warfare. War Chief Zektar is about to get an education in human military history. Class is now in session. The 7th day had arrived. War Chief Zektar's deadline was up. High above Earth, the Corvani warfleet waited in space. 300 massive battleships hung in the darkness like metal sharks. Each one was bigger than a human city. Their weapons could turn planets into dust. On the command ship, Zektar sat on his throne made of bones from his enemies. His red eyes stared at the blue planet below. Soon it would be a burning rock, and the pathetic humans would be dead or enslaved. War Chief, his lieutenant Mordok said, we are detecting human ships approaching. Zektar laughed. How many? 10, 20? Just one, sir. One ship? Zektar stood up, confused. One ship against my entire fleet. On the viewing screen, a human vessel came into sight. It looked like a simple transport ship, the kind used to carry passengers between planets. It was tiny compared to the Corvani battleships. This is an insult. Zektar growled. They send one civilian transport to fight us? The human ship broadcast a message. A voice came through the speakers, calm and friendly. This is Commander Rick Johnson aboard the New Horizon. War Chief Zektar, you have 7 seconds to leave this system. This is your only warning. The entire Corvani bridge erupted in laughter. 7 seconds? One small transport ship was threatening their massive fleet. Human fool, Zektar spoke into his communicator. I have 300 warships. You have one tiny transport. Surrender now, and I will kill you quickly. Rick's voice came back, still sounding relaxed. I guess that's a no. Okay then. New horizon to all Earth defense units. You are clear to engage. Zektar frowned. Earth defense units? What Earth defense units? That's when the Corvani learned their first lesson about human warfare. The civilian transport suddenly changed. Panels opened along its hull, revealing rows of weapons. Wings extended from its sides, showing that it was actually a powerful warship disguised as a harmless vessel. But that was not the worst surprise. All around the Corvani fleet, space itself seemed to come alive. What they had thought was empty space was filled with human ships. Hundreds of them appeared as their invisibility shields shut off. The Corvani had been surrounded the entire time without knowing it. Impossible, Mordok whispered. Our sensors showed nothing. Human technology, Zektar said, his voice no longer confident. They have been hiding from us. The human ships were not like anything the Corvani had seen before. Some looked like research vessels or mining ships. Others appeared to be simple cargo haulers. But as the battle began, the Corvani discovered that each one was actually a sophisticated fighting machine. Captain Nina Foster commanded what looked like a scientific research ship called the Deep Explorer. The Corvani fired at it, expecting an easy kill. Instead, their weapons bounced off shields stronger than anything on their own battleships. Research ship, my foot, Nina muttered as she returned fire. Her science vessel launched a swarm of small fighters that moved through space like a school of deadly fish. The Corvani pilots tried to shoot down the human fighters, but they couldn't hit them. The small ships moved with impossible precision, dodging every shot while firing back with deadly accuracy. How are they so fast? A Corvani pilot screamed over the radio before his ship exploded. What the aliens didn't know was that these human pilots had been training their entire lives. What they thought were video games and sports competitions had actually been military training disguised as entertainment. Lieutenant Bobby Chun sat in his fighter, moving through the battle like he was playing his favorite game, which in a way he was. He had been playing this exact scenario in simulators since he was 5 years old. This is just like level 7 of Starfighter Academy, Bobby said to his wingman as he destroyed another Corvani ship. Yeah, but with better graphics, his friend replied, on the ground. The Corvani had also sent landing forces to attack Earth's cities. They expected to find helpless civilians hiding in fear. Instead, they found something much different. The city of Denver looked peaceful from the air. Parks and buildings spread out below the Corvani dropships. It seemed like an easy target. Major Sarah Collins stood on a rooftop, watching the enemy ships land. She looked like any other human civilian in her simple clothes, but she was far from helpless. Denver control to all units, she spoke into her radio. Looks like we have visitors. Time to show them some hospitality. The Corvani soldiers poured out of their ships, expecting to terrorize the local population. What they found instead was that the civilians were shooting back. Every human adult was armed and trained. What the galaxy thought were hunting clubs and target shooting competitions had actually been military preparation. The humans had been ready for ground combat for centuries. But the real surprise was how the city itself fought back. Mayor Paul Henderson sat in what looked like a normal city hall. But at his command, the entire city became a weapon. Streetlights turned into targeting systems. Traffic cameras became spotters for hidden gun positions. Even the park sprinkler systems could spray chemical weapons instead of water. Corvani forces have landed in sectors 7 through 12, Paul said calmly. Activating city defense grid. The peaceful park suddenly revealed hidden bunkers. The innocent-looking office buildings opened to show gun positions. The Corvani found themselves fighting not just human soldiers, but an entire city designed for war. Colonel Brenda Hayes coordinated the defense from an underground command center. Like every human settlement, Denver had been built with two purposes: normal life and warfare. "They're falling back to the mall," one of her officers reported. "The mall?" Brenda smiled. "Oh, they picked the wrong place to hide." The Corvani soldiers thought the shopping mall would provide good cover. They were wrong. What they didn't know was that every human building was designed to be a fortress if needed. The mall's decorative fountains were actually defensive positions. The art sculptures were weapon systems. Even the food court could be turned into a command center. Worse for the Corvani, the human civilians inside the mall were not running away in panic. Instead, they were fighting back with military precision. Mrs. Betty Thompson was 70 years old and worked at the cookie shop. She also had 50 years of combat training. As Corvani soldiers stormed into her store, she calmly activated the shop's defensive systems while continuing to bake cookies. "Would you boys like to try a sample?" she asked politely as automated guns rose from the floor and began firing. The teenage clerk, Kevin Roberts, had spent his whole life playing what he thought were games in the mall's arcade. Now he realized those games had been training him to operate the mall's security systems. "Mrs. Thompson," Kevin called out, "I've got eyes on 12 more hostiles coming up the escalator." "Thank you, dear," Betty replied as she activated more hidden defenses. "Make sure to lock down the entrance after they come through." Throughout the city, similar scenes played out. Librarians revealed themselves as intelligence officers. School teachers became tactical coordinators. Even the garbage collectors turned out to be logistics specialists. The Corvani had expected to fight weak civilians. Instead, they were fighting an entire population that had been secretly trained for warfare for over 1,000 years. Back in space, War Chief Zektar watched his mighty fleet being torn apart by human ships he had mistaken for harmless transports. "This is impossible," he roared. "They are just civilians. They have known only peace." Commander Rick Johnson's voice came over the radio, still sounding friendly and calm. "War Chief, you made one big mistake. You thought peace made us weak. Actually, peace made us strong. We had 1,100 years to get ready for you." Zektar looked at his tactical display. Half his fleet was already destroyed. His ground forces were being defeated by grandmothers and teenagers. His mighty empire was being crushed by a species he had thought was soft and harmless. "Retreat," he ordered. "All ships retreat." But as the surviving Corvani ships tried to flee, they discovered one final surprise: they were trapped. The humans had surrounded the entire system with ships they had never detected. There was no escape. Rick Johnson's voice came over the radio one more time. "War Chief, I think it's time. You learned what humans really mean when we talk about peace." 3 months had passed since the battle at Earth. The war that War Chief Zektar thought would last 3 days had turned into his worst nightmare. The Corvani Empire was losing badly. On the bridge of his flagship, Zektar stared at the tactical map with growing horror. Red marks showed where his forces had been defeated. There were red marks everywhere. "Report," he growled to his remaining officers. Lieutenant Mordock stepped forward nervously. "War Chief, we have lost 60% of our fleet. Our ground forces on 7 worlds have surrendered, and the humans are advancing on 3 more of our colonies. How is this possible?" Zektar slammed his fist on his throne. "They are peaceful. They have known only peace for 1,100 years. What Zektar didn't understand was that the humans had been playing a much longer game than anyone realized. Fleet. Admiral Tony Roberts sat in the command center of the Terran Defense Network. Screens around him showed the positions of every ship in the galaxy. He had been waiting for this moment his entire career. "Status report," Tony said to his staff. Captain Gary Miller pointed to a display showing Corvani positions. "Sir, we've successfully cut off their supply lines to the outer colonies." Their main fleet is trapped between our 3rd and 7th battle groups, and their home system, surrounded, sir. They just don't know it yet." Tony smiled. This was exactly how the human war planners had predicted it would happen. They had studied Corvani tactics for over 200 years, analyzing every battle the aliens had ever fought. Dr. Amanda Scott walked into the command center carrying a thick folder. She was the head of Human Intelligence Services, though most of the galaxy thought she was just a university professor who studied alien cultures. "Admiral," Amanda said, "we've finished analyzing the captured Corvani command ship. The results are interesting." "How interesting?" Amanda opened her folder. "They have detailed files on every species in the galaxy except one." "Guess which one?" Tony raised an eyebrow. "US? They know almost nothing about human military capabilities. Their intelligence reports are over 800 years old. They still think we fight with chemical explosives and metal projectiles." This was the Corvani's second big mistake. They had assumed that because humans appeared peaceful, they were also harmless. They had never bothered to study human military potential, but humans had been studying everyone else very carefully. In a secret facility on Luna, Dr. Karen White stood before a massive wall display. It showed detailed information about every alien military in the galaxy. Weapon specifications, tactical doctrines, supply requirements, command structures, everything. "How long have we been gathering this intelligence?" asked her assistant, Lieutenant Mike Davis. "Since the peace began," Karen replied. "Every trade mission, every diplomatic meeting, every cultural exchange, we were learning about their military capabilities." Mike looked at the Corvani section. It contained thousands of files with detailed analysis of their ships, weapons, and tactics. "They never suspected. Why would they? We were just peaceful traders and diplomats. No one watches peaceful people." This had been humanity's greatest advantage. While appearing completely harmless, they had been building the most comprehensive intelligence network in galactic history. But intelligence was not their only secret weapon. Captain Nina Foster commanded a human ship called the Mercy, which was attacking a Corvani supply depot. What made this battle special was not the fighting, but what happened after. The Corvani defenders surrendered quickly when they realized they were outgunned. They expected to be killed or enslaved, as they would do to defeated enemies. Instead, Nina did something that confused them completely. "Medical teams to the surface," she ordered. "Treat all wounded, including enemy personnel. Engineering teams, restore power to their civilian areas. Supply teams, distribute food and medical supplies." The Corvani prisoners watched in amazement as human soldiers gave them food and medical care. Human engineers repaired the damage from the battle. Human doctors treated Corvani wounded with the same care they gave their own people. "Why are you helping us?" asked the Corvani base commander. "We are your enemies." Nina looked at him with genuine surprise. "Your people. People need help after a battle. That's just normal." Word of human behavior spread quickly through Corvani military communications. The humans were not just defeating them. They were treating defeated Corvani better than the Corvani Empire treated its own citizens. This caused something that War Chief Zektar had never expected. His own soldiers began to surrender on purpose. On the planet Corvani 7, Captain Bobby Chun accepted the surrender of an entire garrison without firing a shot. "We don't want to fight anymore," the Corvani colonel told him. "Our families are hungry because all our resources go to the war machine. You humans feed prisoners and heal the wounded. We want to be your prisoners." Bobby was confused. "Sir, you know that being our prisoner means you can't fight anymore, right?" "That's exactly what we want," the colonel replied. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Corvani soldiers were laying down their weapons not because they were defeated, but because human captivity was better than Corvani military service. Meanwhile, other alien species were learning something shocking about their peaceful human neighbors. On the trading world of Nexus Station, Ambassador Vexali met with his fellow alien diplomats. They were all trying to understand what was happening. "The humans have been lying to us," said the Kessin representative Pippo. "They are not peaceful at all." "No," Vexali said slowly. "I think they have been telling the truth. They are peaceful, but peace and weakness are not the same thing." The Granite Ambassador, a creature made of living rock named Boulder, agreed. "My people have a saying, the strongest warriors are those who choose not to fight. Perhaps humans understand this better than we do." As they talked, a news report played on the station's information screens. It showed human civilian ships throughout the galaxy, suddenly revealing their true nature as military vessels. "Those cargo ships that have been trading with us for centuries," Pippo squeaked. "They were warships all along?" "Not all along," Vexali corrected. "They really were cargo ships. But they were built so they could become warships if needed. Everything humans do has two purposes." The report showed more surprising information. The terraforming equipment that humans had been installing on dozens of worlds for hundreds of years was actually military hardware. Human colonies throughout the galaxy were revealing defensive systems that had been hidden in plain sight. "They have been building a galactic defense network for 800 years, Boulder said in amazement. "We thought they were just expanding peacefully." "They were expanding peacefully," Vexali replied. "But they were also getting ready for war. Both things are true." Back on his flagship, War Chief Zektar was learning this lesson the hard way. His intelligence officers had finally figured out what they were really fighting. "War Chief," Mordok said nervously, "we have completed our analysis of human capabilities. Tell me." "Sir, they have more ships than we do." "Better weapons then." "We do. Superior tactics than we do. And they know everything about us while we know almost nothing about them." Zektar sat in silence for a long moment. "How is that possible?" "They have been peaceful for over 1,000 years." "That's exactly why it's possible, sir. They used that 1,000 years to get ready for this war. They have been preparing for us specifically for the last 200 years. Mordok showed his commander a captured human tactical manual. It contained detailed plans for fighting the Corvani Empire, complete with predictions of how the war would develop. "They knew exactly what we would do," Mordok continued. "This entire war has gone according to their plan, not ours." Zektar looked at the tactical display one more time. His mighty empire was surrounded, outnumbered, and outfought by a species he had thought was weak. "Send a message to the human fleet," he said quietly. "What should it say, War Chief?" Zektar was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke words he never thought he would say. "Tell them we want to discuss surrender." The war was over. War Chief Zektar stood in chains aboard the human ship Harmony. Around him, his former officers waited to learn their fate. They expected torture, slavery, or death. That's what the Corvani Empire would have done to defeat it. Enemies, but the humans had surprised them again. General Kevin Barnes entered the room where the Corvani prisoners waited. He was a big man with gray hair and kind eyes. He looked more like someone's grandfather than a military leader. "War Chief Zektar," Kevin said politely, "thank you for agreeing to meet with me." Zektar stared at him in confusion. "I am your prisoner. I have no choice." "Actually, you do," Kevin replied. "You can choose to learn, or you can choose to stay. Ignorant. I hope you pick learning." Kevin gestured toward a comfortable chair. "Please sit down. We have a lot to discuss." Zektar sat down suspiciously. "Are you going to torture me for information?" "Torture?" Kevin looked shocked. "No, of course not. Torture doesn't work anyway. People will say anything to make pain stop. We want you to understand the truth." He pressed a button on the wall. The room filled with holographic displays showing the history of the Corvani human war. "This war lasted 4 months," Kevin began. You lost 80% of your fleet, 15 colonies, and about 200,000 soldiers. Do you know how many humans died? Zektar shook his head. 47, Kevin said sadly. 47 good people who will never go home to their families. Each. One was a terrible loss to us. 47? Zektar could not believe it. In 4 months of war? We don't like losing people, Kevin explained. Every human life is precious. That's why we work so hard to avoid war. He changed the display to show human military doctrine. Our goal is never to fight fair. Fair fights get people killed. Our goal is to be so much better prepared that the enemy gives up before many people die. Zektar studied the information. You have been planning to fight my empire for over 200 years. We've been planning to fight everyone for over 1,000 years. Kevin corrected. Not because we want to, but because someone always thinks peace makes you weak. The display showed detailed files on dozens of alien civilizations. Military analysis, weapon capabilities, tactical preferences, everything. You study all of us? We study everyone, Kevin nodded. We hope we never need this information, but we keep it just in case. Knowledge prevents wars. Dr. Sandra Phillips entered the room carrying a large book. She was a small woman with friendly eyes and gray hair. She looked like a schoolteacher, which she actually was. War Chief, Sandra said warmly, I'm here too. Give you some education about human history. Would you like to know why we really stopped fighting wars? You became weak, Zektar said automatically. Sandra laughed. That's what everyone thinks, but it's wrong. We stopped fighting because we became too good at it. She opened her book to show pictures of ancient human weapons. This is a nuclear bomb. One of these could destroy your entire flagship. Zektar looked at the small device in the picture. Impossible. We built thousands of them, Sandra continued. Then we built bigger ones and smarter ones. Eventually, we had weapons that could destroy entire planets. She turned the page to show more. Weapons, chemical gases that could kill every living thing on a world. Biological weapons that could wipe out entire species. Machines that could turn a planet's atmosphere into poison. We realized that war had become too dangerous, Sandra explained. Not just for our enemies, but for everyone, including us. Zektar was beginning to understand. You chose peace because you were afraid of your own weapons? We chose peace because we were responsible, Sandra corrected. When you have the power to destroy worlds, you have to be very careful about how you use it. She showed him more pictures. Humans working together to destroy their own weapons. Treaties being signed to ban the worst forms of warfare. Military forces being reduced and redirected toward exploration and protection. But we didn't forget how to fight, Sandra continued. We just got smarter about it. Instead of building bigger weapons, we built better strategies. Instead of stronger armies, we built better intelligence. Instead of fear, we built respect. Kevin pointed to a new display showing the current state of the galaxy. War Chief, look at this map. How many wars were happening before you attacked us? None, Zektar admitted. And how many species in the galaxy have weapons that could destroy planets? Zektar thought about what he knew of alien militaries. None. Wrong, Kevin said. All of them do. What? Sandra smiled. War Chief, where do you think all these species got their advanced technology? Who taught them how to build starships? Who showed them how to make energy weapons? Who gave them the knowledge to travel between stars? The truth hit Zektar like a physical blow. Humans. For 800 years, we have been sharing our technology with every species we meet, Kevin explained. But we only share the peaceful versions. Every alien civilization in this galaxy has human technology. They just don't know it. Sandra showed him examples. Corvani ships used engines based on human designs. Their weapons used human-developed. energy systems. Even their communication networks ran on human-created protocols. You gave us the technology to fight you? Zektar was amazed. We gave you the technology to live better lives, Sandra corrected. But yes, we knew it could be used for war. That's why we made sure we always stayed ahead. Kevin pressed another button. The display showed human ships throughout the galaxy, many of them disguised as cargo vessels or research ships. Every world that uses human technology can be controlled by us if necessary, Kevin explained. We can shut down your ships, disable your weapons, even turn off your life support systems. We built backdoors into everything. Then why did you let us fight at all? Zektar demanded. You could have stopped us before we fired a shot. Because you needed to learn, Sandra said gently. The galaxy needed to see what happens when someone tries to break the peace. They needed to understand that peace is protected, not just hoped for. She showed him news reports from across the galaxy. Other alien species were watching the war with great interest. They had seen the Corvani Empire defeated quickly and completely. They had seen human mercy toward prisoners and civilians. They had learned that humans were far more powerful than anyone had suspected. Every species in the galaxy now knows two things, Kevin said. First, that attacking humans is suicide. Second, that humans are fair and merciful to those who accept peace. What happens to my people now? Zektar asked. That depends on you, Sandra replied. You can choose to keep fighting and lose everything. Or you can choose to join the galactic community and gain everything. She showed him what everything meant. Corvani worlds where humans were already helping to rebuild after the war. Corvani civilians receiving food, medicine, and education. Corvani children learning in schools that taught cooperation instead of conquest. We don't want to rule your empire, Kevin explained. We want to help you become something better. And if we refuse? Kevin's expression became serious. Then you will sit in comfortable prisons for the rest of your lives while your people learn to live without war. We won't hurt you, but we won't let you hurt others either. Zektar looked at his officers. They were all listening carefully to every word. Some of them looked interested in what the humans were offering. Why do you care what happens to us? Zektar asked. We attacked you. We tried to destroy you. Sandra smiled sadly. Because we remember what it was like to be warriors who thought strength came from conquest. We were like you once. We learned to be better. We believe you can learn too. 6 months later, the Great Assembly Hall in New Geneva was full again. But this time, the celebration was different. Ambassador Helen Carter stood at the podium, but she was not alone. Beside her stood former War Chief Zektar, now calling himself simply Zektar the student. Friends, Helen announced to the crowd. Today we celebrate not just the return of peace, but the growth of our community. The Corvani people have chosen to join us in building a better galaxy. The alien representatives cheered. Even the Corvani delegates, former soldiers who were now learning to be diplomats, seemed happy. Zektar stepped forward to speak. I came here months ago to declare war. I thought peace made you weak. I was wrong. Peace made you strong enough that no one could challenge you. But more importantly, it made you kind enough that everyone would want to join you. He looked out at the crowd of different species, all working together. The humans taught me that true strength is not the power to destroy, but the wisdom to protect. They showed me that real victory is not defeating your enemies, but turning them into friends. Captain Jake Morrison, still wearing his military uniform, stood up from his seat and began to clap. Soon the entire hall was applauding. Helen stepped back to the microphone. So today we don't just celebrate 1100 years of peace. We celebrate the beginning of a new era, where peace is not just the absence of war, but the presence of justice. She smiled at the crowd. And if anyone else out there is thinking about testing our resolve, remember this. Humans don't just keep Peace, we teach it. The classroom is always open, but we prefer students who come willingly. The celebration continued late into the night. And across the galaxy, other species watched and learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose not to fight. The 1100-year peace was over.